We don't need to do that.
All right. Hello, welcome to the Freedom Network. My name's Troy Colmer, and today we are talking with Pia. We got our good friend Pia back again, and she has very in-depth topics on all things to do with a bit of everything, really. And uh, our main purpose for this whole podcast thing is for you to understand that you have such a huge power within yourself and within your mind. And so the idea is for you to just to discover this power that you have within your mind. And so that's what we're going to be talking to you about today. And the other thing before I forget, is for everybody that's listening, that we want to finish this year off in the best possible shape of our life, and both in mind and body. So we're 17 days into the second half of this year. And yeah, if everybody just starts to get healthy, then this whole world can be just so much better. Hello, Pia. How are you today?
Hello, Troy. I'm good. Good to see you again.
Yeah. And I've dragged you back kicking and screaming.
Could you hear it?
Yeah. Well, I've lost my little mate Craig. He's going to Bali for 3 weeks. And yeah, so he's not going to be on it. And I've got my other good mate Jeff, and he's helping me out with doing the podcast, and also got you helping me out. So we've got a few people, because I feel like between the four of us, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of good things that we can try and help people to realize this incredible power that they have within their mind. And it's just I've really been struggling lately, that people, like, I can't understand that people just don't even want to contemplate the idea that there's something else outside of what they've been taught.
They don't want to contemplate the notion that there's something else outside what they've been taught. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, how the eyes glaze over, and but yeah, it's just like I don't know whether they don't want to know, uh, or they think that it's because we've been told all these years forever that it's woo woo, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like,
There's
oh, I've been working with people in real time. Like, I thought, I thought that if I could show people in real time that they can release like stress and anxiety and fears and phobias and all these things, like almost overnight, like within a few days at the minimum, like in real time, like there's no other ticketed operation from the mainstream that would do that, that would put their evidence on the line and do it in real recorded time. So I thought that I'd do that, and then, but people still, they go, nah, I'm not sure if they say no, that's not right, or yeah, I don't know. I don't know that, like, we could just think that if everybody knew the power that they had in their mind, we could get rid of 80% of the sick care system. I reckon 80% of the sick care system and all these tablets and all these things that everybody's on, it could be nearly overnight that we could change the whole trajectory of the whole world. If everybody just all of a sudden went, you know what you're saying, Troy, doesn't sound right, but what about if we just gave it a go? And then they realize that, like, we have this connection to the universal mind to get downloads and things to create our journey to manifesting. And then we can also, because our mind controls our body, that if we work on the mind, then the mind can totally change the whole body, like the whole thing, the whole reaction to everything.
Yeah. Or vice versa, I think, as well. With action can change your mind because you're creating a new set of experiences. But whether it's the mind, whichever way you're coming at it, breaking pattern, let's say, is going to change how you perceive your life. But I think what you're talking about, Troy, and maybe I've got this, I'm just trying to get it, is that people are very comfortable right now. and until people realize that their lives are actually uncomfortable, there's no impetus to make change, right? Because they have to go through that, right? Like there's a something that needs to happen in the mind. Like we've all been programmed to 2.4 kids, white picket fence, work, really hard, make your money and live that life. And when you're looking at changing that belief system, when the world people are looking at reinforces that that's the way that it is, right? It's like you're grabbing a thought out of nowhere and going, well, all I need to do is think differently, but yet the world's still showing me the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you want to say,
do you think that you could still be comfortable? Like you could still not go outside your comfort zone, but still adopt the way of thinking of that you can change the way that you interact. Yeah, I'm trying to get the words right.
No, but you're talking about baby steps, which takes it. I think you're talking about baby steps, which is a little different than that instant shift in perspective that can change your life. Like I think that everybody in their life has had a moment in time where their life changed instantly, whether it was through trauma, whether it was through celebration, whether it was something. Like everybody's had that. I think, I don't know.
Well, they would have had it in 2020, that's for sure.
Yeah, right? That moment where suddenly things today aren't the same as they were yesterday. And rather than thinking of it as a one-off, if they got to think, well, it happened then, right? So what was in place that made that happen overnight that I can incorporate into my life and make something happen overnight? Like you see it all the time with trauma, like somebody has an accident, somebody dies or something like that, and somebody's shifts instantly, they change. And I'm like, well, if you can change instantly through that, like what is an event or a thought process or something that needs to happen that has you shift with more directional power, so to speak, right? More intentional direction, or whatever the words be, instead of being the victim of circumstance, actually create something that the mind can go, wow, I did that. And it was that fast.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Like that instant thing. But I think that we struggle with a couple different things in that. Like there's the whole cognitive dissonance of that, of saying the world is different than you perceive it is hard to break. And then there's also, as we're running our programs and our programming, through indoctrination, through reinforcement in our life and so forth and so on, people get, and this is what I was talking about with being comfortable, people get comfortable with where they're at, not even realizing how uncomfortable they are, not even seeing that there's another option. So you're in survival. Hang on just a sec. And and so you get into survival and just go through the motions instead of actually becoming the creators that we are. All right. Like you have to shift into, I feel like I'm missing something that's going to pull it all together in my conversation.
Yeah.
Right? We'll get there.
But it is hard. It's so hard to put it into words. Like it feels easy. It feels easy to think it, but then to get it out into words to make it simple.
Yeah, but you have to want to change. Like you have to want things to be different. Like, I guess this is where I'm going. Like, and I see it with, with addiction, or I see it with, illness and whatnot. And, because I used to be, like you, a practitioner, and people would come to me and they'd get so far, and then they'd not want to move further in their evolution and their growth and their expansion.
Yeah.
Right? Because you get something out of having an identity, right? It's like if you identify as someone with X, right? Or somebody that has X, there's a payback for that.
Yeah. It's like the people that like being sick.
Right.
Because when
So
they go,
they get something
yeah,
for being sick, and they'd rather have that thing than being well.
yeah,
Because they have to,
because they're getting the benefit of people feeling sorry for them.
or whatever works out, right? It
Yeah.
could be financial benefit from the government. It can be using it to manipulate your environment. It could be, whatever their shtick is, there would be a benefit for people. There's always a trade-off, right?
Yeah, but I know. But the
And then
world's
you have to put
crazy.
them in the place and go, well, if you were well, you would have the energy and the impetus and the desire to go out and do something else. But that's the shift that needs to happen. That's what you're speaking to, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's just because I'm just looking at it as a worldview and think like the world's just like it's just crazy at the moment. Like, fancy having putting cat bowls out for teenage kids out of school for them to drink out of.
Is that actually happening, or are they just talking like it's happening?
No, that's actually at one of our local schools.
Like you've seen it? Like people have actually seen it?
Yeah, it's a friend of ours, their daughter's school. They got cat bowls there for the kids because they identify as a cat.
Yeah, well, I just turn around and throw the food outside and say cats don't need an education, and here's your freaking slop today.
Wow, like
I'm sorry, that's probably harsh, but that's
yeah, that is probably harsh, but and then we've got the boys going in the girls' change rooms.
Yeah, I know.
That's surely there's got to be like where's the cutoff for I know that we're saying we don't want people to get out of their comfort zone, and just go, oh well, just keep going along with whatever's happening. But like where do we cut it off? Like where do you cut off to say that well, like when's enough?
Yeah.
Like that's the bit I can't get.
Yeah.
And then
I guess it's yeah, I don't know. There's a morality compass that is forever shifting and changing based on,
so
time.
my thoughts are that this is why I'm trying to do this thing every day to say that time doesn't wait for us. Like time's not real. It's only ever the now. So every day's a day. If we don't do something, every day's a day gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the only way that we can become to snap our mind out of this hypnotic rhythm is to get empowered by being healthy. Like if you become healthy and you're vibrant, well then it's very hard for the mind to be coerced.
And health is on a level as well. There's mental, emotional, physical health. There's autonomy. And I think that you just used some words that just escaped me, but it was that hypnotic that we're doing, that hypnotic process that was going on, right? And so, and this actually goes to what we were talking about before the call, so we can reiterate it now, which is the notion that I live by, which is like my don't touch the sides, right?
Yeah.
Like all this stuff going on in the world, there's programming to it, and we're all programmable. And people are following this hypnotic stream. That was what you called it, right?
Yeah.
This hypnotic stream and being led, and being that kind of allowing themselves to be led, which is the same as what we mentioned earlier about the victim of circumstance, but allowing themselves to be led on this way because for whatever reason, whether it's being inclusive or whether it's not wanting to be and not wanting to be different than the others, or because they actually believe it and think it's cool, or whatever it is, they're being led. And to me, that denotes a separation from self. Like if you are actually have a child and you're letting them identify as a cat, like there's something wrong, right?
Wait, well, apparently not. Apparently that's okay.
And it's yeah, that might get me kicked off YouTube.
Yeah.
But that to me denotes a complete separation, a lack of awareness and understanding of who you are. Not just as a creative being, like we were talking about before with, creating health and creating freedom, collectively, getting out from underneath this oppressive institution that we're in. But because when you know who you are and you're standing firm, you cannot be led, right? Because you check in and go, whoa, that's not okay. I'm not doing that. Right.
But when do you think that changed? Like when did it change from being like we don't seem to have any moral compass anymore? Like nobody there doesn't seem to be a moral compass now. Like it just seems to be like you see things on on the social media where there's grown men like with no clothes on in front of young kids. And then all painted over them with rainbows and whatever else they got going.
Yeah.
Like how did that become acceptable? Like how does that become acceptable in people's minds? Like, yeah, that's the bit I just can't. I try and get it in my mind. I try and look at it from their side, and I just can't. I just can't see how that's acceptable.
But that's the hypnotic stream that they're in.
Yeah, it's just like
and it goes to, like, if you ask them why, like if you ask people why they do what they do right now, I mean, you've probably noticed this just as much as I have. They don't actually have a rational answer for you, right? It's just like if you ask somebody now at the end of like coming out the other end while they're still wearing a mask, they don't know, right? They don't know. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
So because they were told to, right? And now this depravity, the sexual depravity that's going on, whether it has been latent and is just now being given the platform and the forum to do it, or whether it's again programming. Like I personally think it's all programming, but there's this notion that it's okay, and they feel morally responsible. They think that they have they have a moral obligation to whatever actions they're doing. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe,
oh yeah.
Maybe they don't even know. Like maybe it is they don't know.
To me, it's just crazy.
But I think that there's an agenda with all of this woke stuff, right? Especially the sexually explicit and so forth, and the Christian revival that's going on in the States and other places in the world. And I'm starting to think that the agenda isn't about creating a sexually depraved population, but rather having people like you and like me screaming out for a conservative one, and the movement will be to ultra conservatism. It's just another option, right? Of the pendulum swinging. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just something that's been floating around in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know. I know we like to say we go back to the old, but the old days was only like 10 years ago, It's only 10 years. It's only 10 years ago when it seemed normal.
But here's something that might break
to the
brain,
normal,
right? Like, what if the old ways that you and I grew up in, right? The nuclear family and blah, 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 right? That's programming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we were brought up in a time where we were programmed to, went from the single income house to the double income house, but it was all very nuclear. You didn't take care of your parents. That's why we have all these homes, right? And so forth and so on. So what's to say? And then, like, if you go back in the history that we're taught, 6 and 7 year olds working on their farm, and that's why parents had kids, and that's programming, right?
Yeah.
And a sign of the times and what's necessary at the times. And that's why I go back to what's in here. Like when you check in with yourself, right? And you know who you are, then you see where the programming is versus where the truth is. It's a muscle that needs to be exercised regularly that I'm still just getting good at, but or not good at, but just still working on. I'm not sure if I'm going to say I'm good at it yet, but I'm working on it. Where because if you ask about truth, like the truth is within, like we know somewhere, and that's what I always used to say, like it's not about learning anything, and it's not about the lessons of life, it's about remembering who we are. And when I speak to being awake, I'm like, okay, a lot of people talk about being awake, and that's awake to the agenda, or awake to this, or awake, that aspect of what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, or it's just shown up in the last 3 or 4 years that's been going on for decades. But I refer to it as being awake to the truth of who you are. Because when you know who you are, you're not programmable.
Yeah, I quite like that. So like your moral compass, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
And I think that could be, I think that could be a thing that's, yeah, people have either not thinking of it, or they haven't, they've forgotten.
Yeah. Right. And this whole thing of identity, right? Like, for us growing up, it was you identify as your profession, right? I am an electrician. I am a doctor. I am, right. And now they're throwing out, I identify as they, them. I identify as whatever. And those identities get so ingrained, and it's like, I identify with having diabetes, or I identify with having cancer, or something like that. Those identities take over who we are, so that we can no longer be all things. And in and of themselves, that identity will stifle the creativity. Right. And I think it's why people, like men in particular, will not live long past retirement, because they no longer have an identity as their profession, because they no longer have a profession. Right.
Yeah.
So
that could be a real thing too, but that was, like, you're talking about that now, but that in the, oh no, I keep saying the old days, but
it used, good old days.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying good old days, but back, like previously, like you would really go have a job for life. That's how it used to work. Like you would have a job for life, and you would retire, and then, like you say, have a few years of retirement, and then you would kick the bucket. And that used to happen a lot, like exactly what you were saying, is that the men would lose their identity of that working thing. But do you think now, right, now that it seems to be now that you only really have a job for 2 or 3 years, that sort of seems to be maximum, and then you move on to another job, even less. And so that moving around, especially for a man, do you think that could have something to do with the high suicide rates of young men, because they can't have any? So I don't like the word identify, because the bloody what's have hijacked it, the alphabet community. But they don't have a purpose. Would it be more like a purpose or something like that, do you think? It is I've never really thought of that, but it is something
that's not something I've ever thought about. I wouldn't call it, like, their purpose is a different kind of thing than having a job for 40 years. I don't see that.
That's true.
Like, I think that we have purpose as in career save the whales collapsed with purposes in I'm here to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it purpose, but I think that, men have had a really hard time, particularly white men these days, in the last 20 years, 25 years, with the male toxicity, with the, like, getting passed over for roles just because they are men, right?
Yeah.
As we shift from,
we're not talking about the feminist movement, are we, Pia?
Right? All this. No, I'm not. I'm just, let's not go there. But
let's not go there.
There is a switch in the program, and I can watch it on, like, you watch it on television shows, and you can see it in the program. And it's like, men were the dominant, women were the weaker gender, and whites were supreme.
But do you think that that's...
And now they're doing a reversal, right? They're shifting everything. So I think, just off the top of my head, with what you're saying with high rates of suicide, I would say it's because, like, men don't grow up knowing who they are,
what they're meant to be doing.
Like, there's just so many rules everywhere they turn about, the right way to be. And a lot of men right now, I think, have been emasculated.
Oh yeah, well, you're not allowed to have it anymore.
The fear of
toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Toxic masculinity, they call it.
Whereas true masculine and true feminine that's absolutely beautiful, but we don't have that right now.
I'm trying to bring it back, Pia. I'm trying to bring it back.
I know you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Full support.
I don't have a filter. I'm just saying it how it is and saying that we need to bring it back. Like, I think we need it. We need to get strong men back and strong. And before I was nearly, I didn't want to cut you off before, but because it comes into my mind and I start talking.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Sorry. But when you said that, you said, oh, the strong men and the weak woman, I don't think that was the case. I think that we were portrayed with that. The feminist movement called it that, the weak woman. But you got to think that lady that looked after all the children and the household and the whole family unit, that was classed as a weak woman. That's not right. Like that's that.
Oh, it's not 100%. I'm not talking about.
But that's what they called it. And then, what sort of life she got? But she had real purpose. Like my grandmother, I used to go see them every afternoon after work. And I'd drive up and then Granddad would yell out to Grandma, Troy's here. And then Grandma would drop everything and go down and start getting the cup of tea and the biscuits and that. And then she'd say, oh, Troy, you want something to eat? And I'll say, oh, no, I'm not really that hungry. And Grandma would start going down. He goes, no, you say that you're hungry because Grandma, he goes, she loves doing that, you know? And so then I'd never, after that, I go, yep, no worries. Because he knew she loved it. Like she loved fussing and being the so-called weak woman, you know? But that was her.
There's a difference between what you're talking about and what I was trying to say.
No, I know, but that's what it's being portrayed by the feminist movement, is saying that style of lady that used to look after the whole family unit and but they had a real purpose, you know?
Yeah, and I'm talking about pre-feminism, but there's the truth of the situation, right? Within the statement of behind every good man is a good woman or whatever, which is probably closer to where you're going. And then the perception, right, of women being the fairer sex and men being the dominant. And that's the shift that's been turning around, right? So I get what you're saying, because that's what it was, right? You had to be really strong. You took care of the house, you took care of the kids, and you did all that. And there's a backbone there. But the societal conversation around what that was very different than what it actually was, right? Does that make sense? Like perception versus truth.
So what you're saying the truth was then?
No, I'm saying you're talking about a truth of a situation, whereas I'm talking about cultural perception of women being
right, sex. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But and now the issue is that it's all well and good that, you know, everyone equal opportunities and all these things. But the thing is, the other thing about this equal opportunity thing, right? And because businesses always want to cut costs, like that's how they make their profit. Always want to cut costs. So if there was a man and a woman doing the exact same job and everything was the same, like they would just not employ men. They would just employ women. Because but it's not the same.
Why?
Because if that was cheaper, say the argument is
that just speaks to the wage gap. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I'm just saying on that one topic, right? Because that's one of the things the feminist movement says, is that the women don't get the same pay for the same job.
That's not one of the things the feminist movement is saying. It's a fact.
Yeah, but the thing is,
a fact that women get paid 77% of what men get paid for the same job.
No, but if a business can get the exact same thing from the exact same outcome, wouldn't you employ the person that's cheaper?
Well, it depends on the perception that they're looking to uphold.
No, not from a business angle. From a business angle, like if you can get the exact same product outcome, not irrelevant of man or lady or whatever.
Yeah, I get it.
If you can get the exact same outcome,
from a human perspective, and everybody was the same, right? And we didn't have this divide and conquer thing, this divide the genders in whichever way we can. Then you would just go with a perfect person.
Well, because you're saying that because of you have to employ so many.
No. If there was no the reason, so there's a divide and conquer thing in everything, right? Men, women, black, white, like it's everywhere. We've got to divide and conquer, vax, anti-vax, and all this kind of stuff. There's a division. But if we were all considered truly equal, there would be no division. People, the job would have, this is how much the job pays, and the right person for the job would come into it. We wouldn't have done like in the 80s and 90s, we wouldn't have done the, hey, you have to have 50% women or 40% women. That, like, the government wouldn't have had to step in and say that. They wouldn't have had to say, hey, you've got to hire so many Aboriginals or something like that, because everybody was treated equally.
Yeah, but all that whole movement, right? This is the whole thing. The whole movement is militarized for that exact what you're just saying there. If you go right back to the start of it, it's militarized to get women into the workforce, because then not only do they get a double tax benefit, but they also get to the children get to be raised by the state, because because the mum and dad can't stay home. Like, we can't look after the children, because to pay the rent and the mortgage and to live and eat and all the rest of it, like, you're flat out to do it now, even with two wages. Pardon?
Yeah, you can't live on a single income anymore.
Well, it's impossible.
Yeah, but that speaks to that. Then, and we can keep going back, because the problems didn't start with feminism and then that divide, and it didn't start with religion and that divide.
There's always something.
The bankers came in and said, it didn't start here either, but the bankers came in and said, well, we got to enslave society, and how do we do that? We got to start charging for utilities, and and then boom, utilities get more. Yeah.
But I think,
how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Yeah, I think the whole thing comes back to comes to enslavement. That's all it is, because that's all we are to them. We're just pawns on a chessboard.
And then we go, and here we come full circle, because we can go, okay, there's an agenda. We can see their agenda. We know what they think of us. We're useless eaters and all that kind of stuff. We know the agenda. We know what they want to do. And are we going to give energy to their agenda, or are we going to find our autonomy and live by as the free, autonomous, divine, powerful, creative beings that we are?
And Pia, I don't think you could say that any better. And this is it. That is the exact thing that I'm trying to promote that.
Yeah.
Because we all have it. Like, we all have this divine power within us.
Yeah.
We all have it. We can all,
more than we can even imagine.
Yeah. Even on my little brain that I can think of, but
yeah,
like we all have it. Like, imagine, oh geez, imagine if everybody was thought like that. What a world we could have. It would just be fantastic.
And then I go back to it just being really, really tough to believe one thing and constantly be witnessing another. But once you stretch that muscle and say, no, I am divine, no, I am powerful, no, I am creative, and I am in the world, I'm not of it. I see what's happening, but I'm choosing not to engage with it, because I am bigger than it. All right. So I see a lot, and I hear a lot these days, because we were just talking about the plan, of people saying, when they lock us down again.
Yeah.
Right. When the climate lockdowns come, when the next pandemic comes. And I turn around and I say, look, like, you're watching their television, the vision of the plan that's not happening now, but that you want.
And we're implementing it.
Right. And then you're spell casting for them.
Yeah.
By speaking to it and planning for it as if it's already coming to pass, which, as you know, Troy, is how you manifest. So we are manifesting the community of people that are speaking to a truth, to a world they don't want to move into, are manifesting the world they don't want to move into.
But saying that, Pia, do you think you still need to know what their game plan is, so then you
100%.
can go up against it and do the opposite?
Or check in with yourself and do what you want to do. Like, I know somebody that's buying a house right now in a neighborhood that wouldn't be her preferred neighborhood, because she doesn't want to be in a smart city in the coast. She wants to be on the beach, but she doesn't want to be in a smart city. And so her whole life is moving for fear of something that hasn't come to pass yet. or
Yeah,
may
but
not ever
do you
come to
think,
pass,
I know,
right?
but
And
do you think
so,
sometimes maybe sometimes it's better to be prepared and not to say if like to have an option. Say she could be correct in a way that to say, well, if A happens, I've got B prepared.
oh,
But if
look,
it never happens, well then it doesn't really matter.
I'm not saying it's wrong. It's her choice. It's right for
Yeah.
her, right? But action out of fear, the energy of fear behind an action, like it's very powerful, right?
Yeah.
That energy behind an action, and it can move a lot of things. And it's bringing in, bringing in the thing that you don't want
Yeah.
into your existence, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's people, myself included, that didn't get locked down. I did not get locked down, right? I lived my life like I would. So I couldn't go to restaurants because they were closed, right? So I just went to parties.
Yeah.
Just,
We still couldn't do a lot of things though, like,
yeah. But
and it wasn't ideal. And I know we can look back on it now and laugh and that about it, but at the time, like it was terrible.
it was terrible for
Like
sure.
it was that hard. Like it
But
was
my
like,
my my
yeah, to
point
be
though is that,
ostracized like that's, oh, you mean that was bad.
yeah. My point though is in that, like, you can still be empowered, right? Like, and you can still know who you are in the most oppressive of systems. But if you give power to the oppression, then you've already lost.
Mm.
Right?
And I know, and I'm trying to piece all these bits together, like from your angle, and then I know because I've been to China,
Yeah, me
and
too.
pardon,
Me too.
yeah, and you know how they can't travel outside their province unless that they get permission,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't do certain things, like they have to have permission for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, right, say that you were a Chinese person, you lived in China, and they're all beautiful people. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter where you go in the world, any suburb, any doesn't. Everyone just wants the same thing. All they want to do is live a happy life, have their thing, have their family,
Mm-hmm.
and just have friends, and and to be able to do a bit of this, a bit of travel, a bit of live, eat what they want. That's all. Everyone just wants that, their normal life. But anyway, so, but say for instance you're in China, right? And you think that you have your philosophy, right, of not thinking, touching the sides the way you say it and the box thing, but they're still blocked within their province.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that work?
I guess I look at that, and because that's what they were trying to do here by closing the borders and stuff like
Well,
that,
they
right?
did it. They did it in 2020.
Well, they tried. They made the perception they were all closed, but
Mm.
the reality is that they took the same set of cops from all over the country and put them on the border of South Australia, so the South Australians wouldn't try to move, and then they moved in Victoria, so the Victorians wouldn't try to move. But there wasn't enough police to police that for all the borders and the side streets.
Yeah, if everybody just went out and did, if
Just went out and did
everybody
it.
just went out and did it,
It could have been over in 2 days. It would have
oh
been,
yes, in
but
one day even.
yeah. But I guess I look at it like from your standpoint of actually being physically unable to do something that you want to do. And I know people that were traveling internationally unvaxxed all the way through 2020, 21, 22, right?
Yeah,
But I go, well, what's my definition of suffering, best definition I've ever heard, and one that I stand by, is suffering is wanting things to be different than they are. Right? If you can accept what is, instead of saying it should be different, or this is, defining it good or bad or whatever, and just say, well, this is, right? So the life that I live right now is I can't leave the province. Then there's still an amazing life you can live in that this is what is. Is that the most empowering way to be? Probably not, but I think that from where we are, and if you haven't tapped into that true creator of yours, right, internally, and you will. Because like I know people that were just walking through borders and cops were just stepping aside because they just stood in their power. But if you're from that place and you go, okay, well, this is what is, I can focus on the shit and say what I can't do, or I can focus on what I can do and make my life amazing in those parameters. Right.
yeah. And I fully understand what you're saying, and that is, I think that is actually 100% correct what you're saying too. But the thing is, this hasn't happened yet in Australia, but that's the road we're going to. But we don't have to. Like, I know what you're saying. We don't have to go that road.
There's a plan, and then there's what is actually happening.
So this is what I'm trying to
look, like I see people and they're reading, they're in the minutia, right? They're reading every article about everything they're pulling out of us, and they're in abject fear of what they want to do to us. And then there's other people like myself that are just like, I'm just living my life. And if something happens, I'll navigate it then. But I'm not going to live in fear today of what may or may not ever happen. That's not how I want to live. That's not living. You're imprisoned by your own thought.
Yeah. But the thing that I'm trying to do, and I understand that, but I could do that myself, right? I could just go and do Troy and be Troy and just do thing and let everything happen around me. But my thing is that if people don't realize that we are at a crossroad right now where where if everybody starts to realize that this incredible power that they have, that you have just been talking about, this incredible power that we already have, and to become healthy in both mind and body, we don't have to go that road that they're trying to put us down. So this is the thing that I'm trying to change the GPS. I'm trying to change that direction.
Which is why we're here.
It's great. And so, and I don't want to focus on what's coming either. I'm just saying that we can change that. What I'm saying that we can 100% change. We don't have to go that road. Like, if we can get enough people to realize that they already have all this power, and then they can say, no, we don't accept it. We're not doing that.
But what if, Troy, and I'm just going to throw this out here as a, devil's advocate kind of, let's discuss, just to see where we go with it.
Yeah.
Where would you be and what would you do? Or like, what if no one wanted to go to that reality tunnel with you? What if, we're doing this podcast and everybody is looking at it and going, well, that's crazy. And I'm just going to go and drink my milk out of my cat bowl. Right. Like, what if that happens? What if people don't wake up?
Well, yeah. And I'm fully aware that's probably what's going to happen, because, people, but we have got a few, we've had a few people that are starting to come over to the good side. And
I guess where I'm coming at it from is that if you, Troy, with your mission, me, Pia, with mine, are committed to going down, I just called it a reality tunnel, so let's just keep using that language, but going down a path of freedom, of autonomy, then we can do that without bringing millions of people with us. Yes, it's nice that these people want to come. I think that's great. Let's do it, right? Let's all jump in there, but we can still do it. We don't have to be attached to what somebody else does to go down the road that we want to go down. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know. I don't.
Like, it goes with the premise of, I can't change the world, but I can change my world. And I can be an invitation in my world just by the nature of who I am, you, and we all can, by the nature of who we are, invite people into a different space, which I think is what you're doing with the podcast and everything. You're just saying, like, let's just be something different. And as being something different, we can create something different. Right.
Yeah. Give them a different opportunity that they may not know that existed before.
Yeah. It's like the reason I used to go to the protests in Melbourne, right? It wasn't because I thought we were going to change politics. I wasn't under the illusion that anything that I did and any protest that I went to was going to change what they were doing. Right. But I knew that being a body on the street was important, because people that hadn't woken up to what's happening yet needed a loud voice opposing the only one voice that they were hearing.
And
right?
see, and now, Pia, so we can go back. We can talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And so, if all those people that did that,
Mhm.
for all that protesting, like that, that's the only reason why Australia ended up coming out of the tyranny that we're in, is from all them protesters, because it was getting too big. Like the mob was starting to grow.
Well, maybe,
And so
maybe
they had
not.
to let the strings off. But imagine if everybody just said, like you just said, and said, what about if we just lived in our own thing and didn't pretended that it wasn't real?
I didn't say pretend it wasn't real, but just didn't live by it.
Didn't live by it and didn't do any, like if there was zero protesting and zero standing up for what people believed in, like we would not be, we would already be QR coded into everything. Like, and we'd already still be.
Yeah. Right. Like the frequency of the planet's changing, the consciousness is raising, people are waking up. And, then it's carts and horses and things, right? Like, did people wake up and make a stand and therefore we didn't get locked down? Or did we not get locked down because the control mechanisms are breaking down and so forth and so on? Like why are people waking up? I'm saying this poorly, apologies, but why are people waking up now? Right? When this has been going on for decades. I've been talking about it, aspects of it for a very long time, and people get that glazed eye look that you're talking about before, right? And so I believe that there's something happening on the planet. Like, some people would call it going into the age of Aquarius, other people are calling it revelations, other people are calling it whatever. But the veil has gotten so thin that people are now able to see what they could not see before. And as the veil gets thin and people can see what they can't see before, that same veil isn't allowing people to control. Those control mechanisms have weakened, I believe. So it's just logically our mind will go to that linear time frame and go, people woke up, hit the streets, therefore we're free now, which we're not, but we have that free thing now. Or we decided somewhere in us that we're free, even though we didn't know that we were free. The control mechanism started breaking and we just went, no, we're not having this. And we didn't even need to hit the streets. Like maybe we didn't need to hit the streets and we would still be where we are. We don't know. You don't know what you stopped when it stopped it.
Yeah.
But like my belief throughout me, and I see the argument, and I can make it myself. Good thing we hit the streets because it stopped it. I could use it. But I want to stay open to the notion. I need to stay open to the notion that the consciousness of the planet is raising to such that people are awake. Again, not awake to the planet, but starting to wake up to who they are and going, wait a second, I'm not going to live this slave existence. And I think it started, like a lot of those kids that we're calling woke now are the ones that say, you know what, I want more out of life than just going to work for 50 years and then dying 2 years after, right? Yeah. Like that's something they are bringing to the planet, saying there is more to life than just this slave existence. So
yeah, and I know I talked about that before, about you would have the same job for 50 years, but yeah, and I don't agree with that either. I actually like the whole system how it is, the kids, and you get to go around and get different experiences, and you get different life, different working experiences, and you meet new people, and like I think that's great. Like they're just not being stuck in the same thing. I think I don't have a problem with that at all.
And you're exercising different muscles and different aspects of yourself, and not getting caught up in what we were referring to earlier as the identity of the job. Right? It's like, what do you do? Well, today I'm doing this. Right?
Yeah. But I think all that works fine until that you become a family unit.
Yeah.
And then the problem there is, right, that you can't keep that the same once you become a family unit. You can't keep that. You have to bring stability into the family.
In the structure as it exists today. Yes.
Well,
I stay open to maybe there's a different structure that we can be in where people can all still.
Well, if we look, we've only got to look at what's happening now, and well, that's what we've got now, isn't it? Like there's no stability, and now you look at how the kids are.
Yeah.
and the crime rate's just like skyrocketing.
Yeah, yeah.
And divorce is, I heard the kids the other day saying that this will be okay for my first wife. Like imagine saying that. Like,
Wow.
marriage was supposed to be for the rest of your life. Like that was the original intent. The original intent was forever.
Mm-hmm.
Forever. For until you died, until you
Mm-hmm.
dust. And now it's just like, oh yeah, they're all right for the first, they'll do for a little while, and then I'll just order something, leave, and go and do something else.
Yeah, serial monogamy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like the family unit has really broken down. And
Mm-hmm.
then because the family unit's broken down, is that then the children become broken down.
Yeah.
And then so those children, like what future are they gonna be leading into?
Yeah.
And the other thing
We're
too,
watching
Pia,
the drag queen story times and all that kind of stuff. What are we
the other
teaching?
thing too I'm really worried about, Pia, is that say, for instance, they bring in this universal basic income because AI is going to be take over so many jobs, right? And they bring in that universal basic income. I can see young boys to be more than happy to be in the 3D virtual reality where they can have their porn or whatever they want with they've got as many girls as they want within their 3D reality, and they can do whatever they want. They're getting paid to stay at home.
Yeah.
Like I can just see that as a real problem. Like
Yeah.
I can just see that they just won't care. They won't have a problem at all with not wanting to experience nature and things like that.
Yeah.
And this is that's a real issue, a real problem that I see that will happen, that people, and that will be the collapse of society then, because then, if boys don't want to date women, well, then there's going to be no children. So then society will just have to fall by the wayside. So do you see that as a real problem?
I look, I go back to, you just deal with what is, right? Like, and people are going to make their choices for who they are. But I do see that for myself, this whole metaverse virtual reality thing, as that to me is more transhuman than thinking that they are literally going to modify us into being part robots.
Well,
right?
I know a lot of teenage boys now that are more than happy to stay in their bedroom, playing, Xbox or PlayStation, whichever one it is, I'm not sure, on computer with their mates, like all weekend, and not come out of the room. Like more than happy.
And there's certain, and that to me, like I was saying, is like technology has them, right? They've lost the sense of self. I'm not saying that the mates that you're talking about, but like I see that when you're so into your, like, even the phones, right? The addiction to the phone, the distraction, the constant ping, ping, ping that takes you out of yourself, that actually interrupts your sleep, it interrupts your creativity, it gets in the way of being centered and focused. Like, there's many, many, many not healthy things for us that happen just looking at the screen. And virtuality is that on steroids, right? They're going to make a 3D internet, right? Like, we'll be able to, like, now with the virtual reality that's going to happen, like, you and I could have our podcast, turn it off, and actually put our goggles on and sit in a room like we're actually physically having a cup of tea together, right?
Yeah.
Like, all these things are coming. But, like, philosophically, I'm like, well, people are going to make their choices. We have free will, and people want to go down that route, then they can go down that route. And in my worldview, that's going to disconnect them further from their center of who they are, from the breath, from nature.
So we're losing humanity. That's the way I see it. We're losing humanity.
Well, there will be people that go down that path, right?
Yeah.
And then there'll be a whole lot of us as well, right, that are choosing a different path for us, and to go down a different reality tunnel and get, and as we see how damaging and how corrupt these phones are, and how they corrupt us with their constant programming and their constant pinging and so forth, that'll just choose to spend more and more time in nature. And that's the divide that we're going to be going into. right? Now we can get all upset about it, or we can accept it and go back to suffering as wanting things to be different than they are. Yeah, it'd be great to get everybody on board and say, you know what, you don't have to go into the machine, right? You just don't have to do that. You can be outside
At
and
least,
remember, like,
my thing is at least
to
give them an option. Do you think?
yeah, totally. But it's an addiction, and until it takes them. And yeah, that's what you're doing. You're giving people an option just by
Yeah.
having the conversation and just by going out there and doing it, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, I'm reluctant to define anything as good or bad, because I don't want to touch the sides,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, there's all this shit going on around me, and I'm fully aware that there's all this shit going on around me. But Newtonian physics, and I'm not a Newtonian physicist by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't even believe in half of it, but it says for every action there's an equal opposite reaction, right?
Yeah.
So for all the shit that we're saying, there has to be just as much good that
Yeah.
balances out. There just has to be. That's
Yeah.
the law of nature, right? And I think nature's writing itself. So we're going to start seeing more good if we're willing to look at the good and not always be inundated with the bad. So does it suck that we're going to lose a lot of people to the Borg? I don't know where that came from, the Borg. We're going to lose the people to the Borg. You will be assimilated.
Yeah.
But does that suck? Absolutely, it sucks. Then we go into NPCs and the whole like a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But do I have control over that? I don't. But I can do like you're doing, stay in the conversation. Right?
I suppose I'm
Stay in the
looking for more
conversation of
people
creating.
like myself that are like-minded and want to enjoy this beautiful reality that we have and the
Yeah, I get that, because you want that,
nature.
and I get that.
So,
But I'm in
so
that
it could be
too. I'm
selfish
like,
for
we're all the
myself,
people
maybe.
that think like me. Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
the people that think like me, that we can have these amazing discussions, that we can
Yeah.
have that,
Yeah.
create magic instead of creating what they want for us.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
with you, Troy, 100%.
Yeah. And we've been going on nearly an hour, Per. So we probably need to wind this up again. But so, like at the end of it, right? At the end of the whole thing, like I just think that I want to give someone the option to say, like, we're at a fork, right, in the road, and say that, okay, so we can choose to go, because we still have the choice at this very point in time. We still got the choice.
Yeah.
That we can choose to go down that virtual reality road and do all that stuff now.
Yeah.
Or we can choose to live in vibration and or higher vibration frequency and nature and bring back the family unit and all those things. That's the way I see it. For me, I just see a future in my mind. I see a future of people where they're just, the kids are out playing again on the streets and kicking the ball around and and neighbors are talking to each other and that's the future I would like to see happen.
So in this time where we've all been locked down and all this stuff is going on, right? Do you see more community stuff like that happening where you are?
No, I don't think so.
See, I do. I see communities popping up all over the place and people doing stuff all over the place. And maybe that's because that's the direction I'm looking. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, but I live on the beaches, so it's sort of, the beaches people are generally more wanting to get into nature because for the simple fact that when summer comes, most people don't want to take their shirt off and not look, too bad. But even though that's starting to go as well. But I know the further you go from the beach inland, where the perceptions change a lot. But so really to wind it all up for this podcast is that I think that we have a choice right now. We have the choice to get healthy and get mentally strong and learn the powers of your mind to know that you are a creator of your own reality, and not let someone else create it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's I just want to give people the awareness that they have the ability to do that.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's what I'm about. And so
Nice.
that's and I know you're the same, you know, and that's why you don't want to touch the sides, as you say, with the in the
Well,
box.
I have a bit of, I won't go into that now. We probably need to jump off.
Yeah.
But,
We we can talk about that in our next podcast.
yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a lot to talk about. But you know,
I appreciate Troy so much that you're just, the openness to the conversation, because it's like not about being right or wrong. It's just about
no,
being in conversation.
yeah, but there is no right or wrong.
Yeah,
And who
exactly.
says what's right or wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that there is but in saying that, I don't think kids with cat bowls there's something wrong there. Like that, I think there has to be some sort of morality. I do think there has to be
Yeah.
we've got to have some sort of morality, community reality for society. I think there has to be some sort of morality. Like,
And I think in that space there needs to be brought back the notion of healthy discussion and being willing to agree to disagree.
like what's acceptable for us for a community and a society to live? What's acceptable? Is it acceptable for, you know, adults parading around in the nude in front of young children? Is that acceptable? And talking about sexual things in front of young children, is that acceptable? You know, having kids, girls don't have their privacy anymore in girls' change rooms. Is that acceptable? Is kids drinking out of cat and dog bowls? Is that acceptable? You know, we need to ask all the questions and to say, like, where do you stand on your morals, like, for that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the questions that I'm asking for people just to ask themselves, and to say, you know, do we stand for something? Strength, honor, and integrity. That's what I stand for. And like, I think you have to stand for something. For me, that's my belief. So I'm just hoping that all these podcasts and all the things that I'm doing, and the Become Limitless community and the Freedom Network and all these things, is to stand for something, you know, to become a human.
It's great. It's great. And just being in the conversation is fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, Pia, for your time again. And yeah, it was another great conversation.
All right.
Yeah, we covered we covered a lot of roads, and
as we do.
Yeah, so don't forget to head over to freedomnetwork.io and join the Become Limitless community. It's all free, or most of it. So we're looking to create 1 million people in 2023 of, you know, empowered, vibrant, on Troy's side, you know, on the Troy channel. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Thanks very much. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.